The Walt Disney Company is still burning. The fire keeps on raging. They keep on making horrible mistakes. We'll talk about it more in just a second here. As 2023 marches to its end, the Walt Disney Company continues to shoot itself in the foot. I have never seen anything like this in my entire life. I got this article from Bounty into Comics, and excuse the weird site glitch that's going on. I don't know if there's some problems with Brave browser, but the headline reads, Disney's magic fades as company admits being at odds with consumer in recent SEC reports. I'm going to read through this and react to it. There's a lot of other Disney stuff going on since this article was published, but we'll talk about those in just a minute if I remember. The Walt Disney Company appears ready to fully acknowledge the cost of its political and social agenda. Revealed in recent filings to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, Disney notes to regulators and to potential investors in its business, quote, "We face risks relating to misalignment with public and consumer tastes and preferences for entertainment, travel, and consumer products, which impacts demands for our entertainment offerings and products, and the profitability of any of our businesses," unquote. Put simply, Disney is taking on water and they know it. By law, they have to inform current and would-be investors of this fact. The magic is fading. Disney's latest animation, Wish, failed to meet box office expectations, according to a report from Variety. Disney's latest animated endeavor just managed to make a fairly disappointing $19.5 million on opening weekend. That's bad. And a total of $31.7 million the 5 days that followed. The movie was projected to notch the top spot over a family-oriented holiday weekend with an estimated $35 million for the weekend, and projections between $40 million to $50 million for the following business days. Instead, Wish managed to trail the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and Ridley Scott's Napoleon. That's the end of the sentence. It's Disney's Strange World all over again. Past Disney Thanksgiving releases like Frozen, Frozen 2, and Coco stand as evidence that this is an entertainment company that used to know what they were doing. More so, Disney used to know their audience. Exactly right. And those movies were not that long ago. Those were at least the 2010s. Now here we are in the 2020s and they can't find a hit. The SEC disclosure highlights the risks Disney faces concerning the potential misalignment with the public and consumer preferences in entertainment, travel, and consumer products. It reads, quote, "Generally, our revenues and profitability are adversely impacted when our entertainment offerings and products, as well as our methods to make our offerings and products available to consumers, do not achieve sufficient consumer acceptance. Further, consumers' perceptions of our position on matters of public interest, including our efforts to achieve certain of our environmental and social goals, often differ widely and present risks to our reputation and brands," unquote. So, in short, that whole statement is basically saying it's your fault for how you're perceiving what we're doing. That's Disney saying that if you don't like what we're doing, that's on you, and that's a risk to us. So stop disagreeing with our politics. And here we have a screenshot from that stupid Proud Family reboot. That whole slaves built this country sort of, what is it called? Slam poetry session. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's our fault that you started pushing these politics out of nowhere, these ideological points of view out of nowhere. Yeah, it's the fault of the longtime consumer who never expected that from you to begin with. Matters of public interest should be translated as politics, and it is no secret that Disney is fighting a political battle against the preferences of American parents, the primary consumer for the Walt Disney Company. Children will watch just about anything they're shown up to a certain age. Therefore, it is the parent that has to be won over in the marketing for any Disney product or experience. Absolutely. Parents and prospective parents, according to a 2022 study in Proceedings of the Royal Society, are, quote, "are associated with increased social conservatism," unquote. The findings line up with the World Values Survey involving 426,444 participants in 88 countries over a 40-year period, which showed the more children a person had, the more socially conservative they became. So the data is there. Disney knows this at the highest levels. It's hard to imagine CEO Bob Iger doesn't understand this, which is why at a recent investors presentation at Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Iger recently pledged to, quote, "quiet the noise on Disney's left-wing political activism." Yeah, that went over like a lead balloon. Nobody believed that when he said it. It remains to be seen if Bob Iger and Disney are willing to do more than quiet down the drumbeat of the culture war. In recent years, Disney positioned itself openly against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' parental rights and education law, while turning a blind eye to executive producer LaToya Ravenew and president of Disney General Entertainment Content, Carrie Burke, declaring Disney's not-so-secret agenda to place gay and queer content in children's programming. That was a part of Reimagine Tomorrow. I think both of those people were fired. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they're still there, but the amount of people that they swept under the rug when this stuff came out, I'm pretty sure one of those two ended up being swept under the rug. That was awful. The whole Reimagine Tomorrow thing was terrible. It was a massive overstep of their boundaries as an entertainment company. Parents will not tolerate that, okay? They are trying to play to their own interior group politics. And this is proof that the Walt Disney Company is comprised of people who value identity more than entertainment. And that's the problem. And that's what they're trying to do to these brands, is make them identity brands. Even Wish stars a mixed race protagonist that leans more black. Notice they won't go the full way. They'll do mixed race most of the time. And that's kind of a trend that you'll see, because it's all about intersectionality. It's really embarrassing. I'm going to finish off this article, or at least try to. Disney's financial setback appears to be substantial, as reports indicate $1 billion loss attributed to 4 recent film flops. Additionally, the company acknowledges that they face a decline in domestic advertising revenue, quote, due to a decrease of 14% from fewer impressions, reflecting lower average viewership, partially offset by an increase of 7% from higher rates. Fewer consumers are watching and streaming Disney products, and it didn't help that they took away password sharing and they increased their prices. They had a couple Black Friday sales, but from what I understand, nobody was biting. The only time people willingly get Disney Plus outside of the most hardcore of hardcore Disney fans is if it's bundled with something else, and they just have it, so they just check it out and then they never touch it again. The brand is poison, and they're not willing to admit the brand is poison, but I guarantee you investors and onlookers in the business world understand this. If simple YouTubers like myself understand that the brand is poison, then obviously people at the highest levels of the company know that. They just can't admit that, because then they have to answer to investors. Although this is really stupid, because now investors are able to sue for Disney effectively damaging the brand. Because I don't know if the article will mention it, but they basically said, yeah, we're not going away from any of these things that have caused our company to decline. So that, as many have pointed out, is grounds for a lawsuit. Whether or not it'll actually get there, I don't know. But it is grounds for less investor faith in the company. And that's exactly what I think is going to start to happen. At times like this, it's hard not to recall that moment of realization in James Cameron's Titanic, when the higher-ups aboard the floundering ship remark, "But this ship can't sink," to which the vessel's designer responds, "She's made of iron, sir. I assure you she can." Disney is a company built upon and subsidized by the trust of parents and families. Without that trust, it will continue to slowly sink. Very well put article from Bounding Into Comics. But I mean, this is just typical of what we have seen over the past year, over the past 4 or 5 years from Disney. I mean, they've started this stuff early on, but in 2023, it just ramped up increasingly, and each subsequent release has been worse than the last, because they greenlit all of these movies under Reimagine Tomorrow, thinking that because it's Disney, people would just flock to the theaters out of curiosity, and they didn't. Because they were making radical changes to establish properties that nobody asked for. Nobody wanted a Black Little Mermaid. Nobody was asking for that. Not even in the black community that I know were people asking for a Black Little Mermaid. But yet that's what we got, because the people inside thought it would be the best thing to uplift black young women, or whatever their excuse was. But nobody asked for it. But that's exactly what they did. They played the race game, and they play all of these identity politics games. And then when people go, we don't want to play those games because that's not why we come to you, they go, well, too bad, that's what you're getting. And so people go, okay, bye. They take their money and run. And the other funny thing that happened, if I can find it here, if BIC is covering it, is, well, this is one of them. Disney CEO Bob Iger attempts to blame the Marvel's abysmal quality on COVID, lack of executive oversight on set. I'm not even going to read the article. That's just pathetic. The Marvels failed because there was no interest. There was zero interest in those characters. There was zero interest in the product. Brie Larson already has a reputation for being horribly unlikable, which you can tell she's somewhat trying to salvage, but I think it's too late at this point. I think she's just resigned herself to going, yeah, people don't like me because I made stupid foot-in-mouth statements. Whereas beforehand, she used to be fairly decent. I don't know if anybody remembers some of her older interviews, but she used to be fairly decent. But let me see if I can find what happened today. I don't know if BIC is covering what statements were made. Oh, there's also Doctor Who, the recent Doctor Who special that came out, and they basically undressed the legacy Doctor Who, or they not undressed, they dressed down the legacy Doctor Who character and basically accused him of, I think it was transphobia, something like that. It's just getting out of control, and I'm not even a Doctor Who fan, but it has just gotten so out of control. And then when consumers push back, they blame consumers. Never have I seen businesses operate with such malice towards their customer base, because they're made up of people who think that they're better than the customers. When Coke screwed up with New Coke, did they blame the customers? Maybe somebody within the company tried to, but eventually they pivoted back because they recognized the customers didn't want what they were selling. They were put in the position for the first time in the company's history, at least in a major sense, where the customers wanted the original over the rebrand. Rebrands are a risky proposition in business, and Disney rebranding from a family brand to a specifically ideological DEI-based brand is a risky endeavor, and it hasn't paid off. But they're so committed to it, and they've got so many people in the company that are committed to it at all costs, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're losing money, guys. It doesn't matter that they fire this person and hire this person. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the company recognizes this is the problem, and they throw it all away. They fire every person who is promoting this and is actively championing DEI and wokeness, for lack of a better term. Every person who is pushing this division. That's exactly what they need to do to get rid of it. Let me go back to the original article just for a stable background here, if I can find it. There's a lot of stuff going on. There, they got the Marvel star, Aman Vellani, says the key to saving the MCU is good writing, not bigger stakes. It's just about making the audience care about the characters. What a good statement on her point. I don't necessarily care about her politics or her background. That's just a good, true statement. But Disney won't listen to that. I almost said Zack Snyder, but it's not. It's Kevin Feige, Marvel Studios. They won't listen to that. They just won't. And because they won't, they will continue to see losses. But the fact that they've come out and said, oh yeah, we recognize this, which we knew they knew, but they're basically not going to change it, is corporate suicide. It is absolute corporate destruction. And I feel bad because, guys, Disney used to mean something. It used to mean something to me. I grew up watching Disney Channel, watching Disney films. I remember in school, we watched The Big Green. Anybody remember The Big Green? On one of our movie days. We had movie days at school, and they were mostly Disney movies because they were what was acceptable. Now you have to question if Disney movies are appropriate for kids because they start talking about things like sexual identity, which is absurd. They shouldn't be talking about that in front of children. That's a discussion to be had later on in life in the right contexts. And then they start doing stuff talking about the environment and about, you know, gender roles and all these other things. They're ashamed of their past. I don't know if you all remember, but back in 2001, when there were the September 11th attacks, Disney did a beautiful series of bumpers with their cast of their different shows, like Lizzie McGuire, Even Stevens, what else was on at the time? Famous Jet Jackson. They did a whole bunch of America, like sort of American pride bumpers, talking about people coming together and loving each other and sharing national pride. And it was beautiful. And then years later, there's talk of the corporation or people within the corporation going, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. We regret doing that. It's unbelievable. At a time when unity was needed the most, Disney was pushing for unity, as opposed to what they're doing now, which is pushing for division. It's truly sad. Most of us grew up with Disney. Share your Disney memories down in the comments below. Your good Disney memories, you know? I know a lot of girls have good Disney movie memories. My sisters love Disney. I have a lot of good Disney memories from The Emperor's New Groove is one of my favorite animated films of all time. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I liked Atlantis the Lost Empire, Treasure Planet. Lilo and Stitch is one of my favorites of all time. And the TV series was great, and the sequel movies were great. I don't think there has been a necessarily bad Lilo and Stitch project, except for maybe Leroy and Stitch was questionable. But even that was fine. It was just like a special episode of the animated series. It was the conclusion to the animated series. I thought it was pretty good. And then there's all the Pixar stuff from The Incredibles, Finding Nemo, Ratatouille, Bug's Life, Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, Up, and WALL-E, which neither of which I liked, but they're still better than what Pixar's putting out today. They have just destroyed that brand that had so much meaning, so much passion, and it united people in such beautiful ways. And that's what Walt Disney was doing. He was creating good, neutral entertainment. He didn't want to get involved with politics. When his animators came to him and were worried about communists infiltrating their ranks, he wanted nothing to do with it. That's why he testified before Congress, was because his animators were so worried about it. Because his animators were so worried, he decided to go and testify before Congress about some of the communist infiltration going on within the unions. The man was apolitical, and now his company is being run by the most politically biased people out there who are using this legacy brand as a template to do what they want to do. It's all about them. It's not even about the people who they claim to represent. It's all about them and what they find important. It's selfish, and it bleeds through the writing, and people see it, and they're either bored or completely apathetic with it, and they just walk away. In order to change, you need to understand what your audience wants, and you need to make something for them and stop engaging in divisive ideas. Stop putting certain people on a pedestal and then lowering others, but that's still what they do. I don't like making these videos. I really don't. But I think it's worth talking about because I think it's a good case study in why a company that makes entertainment for families needs to stay as politically neutral as possible and just present good, general moral messages. And not focus on race, not focus on gender, not focus on sexuality, certainly not when it comes to kids. Back in the day, we used to have cartoons and kids shows with diverse cast of kids, and nobody said anything because it was just natural. If a white kid had two black friends, like in Stanley, does anybody remember Stanley? If that took place, that was no big deal. And nobody cared that he had two black friends that were girls. They were just there. They weren't in every episode, but they were there. So what? You could easily say, oh, that's for diversity points, and maybe it was even way back in the early 2000s. But the difference was it wasn't being emphasized. They didn't do interviews with the people and say that, oh, the most important thing about what we're doing is showing kids diversity. But that's what they'll retroactively say about older stuff that was diverse. And it's unbelievable because that's not what people care about. That's not what kids care about. Kids care about entertaining things. Kids don't care about necessarily seeing themselves on the screen. It's cool for 5 minutes, but they care about being entertained. If they're bored, they walk away. And a lot of stuff they do today is very, very boring from Disney and from some of these other Hollywood conglomerates. It's absolutely sad. I want to see this company succeed, but it's burning, and I've seen far too many people saying, let it burn. And I have to agree with them. I have to agree. There's no saving this company under its current leadership. They are just devoted to letting it sink to the bottom of the ocean. Anyways, let me know what you think about the current state of Disney on fire, and I will see you guys in the next video. This has been Super Koopa TV. Remember, Hollywood does not respect you. God bless. Have a good one. Peace.